Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my show and happy Halloween. Welcome to my Halloween special. Tonight's format is going to be a little bit different, but I hope that you guys are okay with that. I've had a few of you ask in the past if I have had any weird experiences with the unexplained. I do so much research with it that, I guess it goes to follow that, hey, maybe I've experienced something out of the mundane, out of the ordinary, extra mundane, whatever you want to call it. And to be completely honest, I have had my fair share of experiences with the paranormal. I know I've kind of briefly mentioned them or touched on them here on the channel. Definitely have mentioned a few on different podcasts I've been on. But in keeping with this, the most spooky night of the year, I thought that I would tell you guys one of my spookiest encounters. Now, this case occurred when I was early to mid teens, and the setup is this. So I've got two younger sisters, and they were kids at the time. Again, I was like early to mid teens. And unfortunately, I don't remember the exact age. My mom probably does because she has a crazy mind for dates. Um, but around this time, my mom had this long distance friend that she would keep up with. It was like a weekly phone call sort of deal. And so, like, common procedure was she would go and talk on the phone. My sisters and I would stay up and watch cartoons. So that is exactly what we were doing on this particular night. The living room was set up in such a way, and I should probably mention too, the house is a Victorian Gothic revival home. It was built in the 1860s. We actually know pretty much every family that's lived in the house from when it was built to the modern time. And we also know where the original owner of the home is buried. So we've actually visited his grave and the grave of his families. And yeah, just a very interesting history, a very interesting house. I mean, it quote unquote looks haunted. Um, yeah, fantastic place. And it came with this large mirror. I mean, this thing was huge. I don't know if it was original to the house. I don't know when it was put in. It looked old. And literally it was like the size of a table. I mean, it was this gigantic mirror on the wall in the living room. And so, because it was this giant mirror that was super duper heavy, we didn't really attempt to move it at that time. Eventually, we did. I don't remember when that happened, but at this time, it was up in the living room behind the TV. And from where anywhere you sat in the room, you could kind of see the staircase reflected in this mirror. It's a closed staircase, but you could still see like through the doorway, kind of reflecting up just the very beginning of the steps. So my sisters and I are watching TV. My mom's upstairs, and about 20 minutes in, and I kept track of this because of how many episodes of whatever we were watching had played. Um, I heard my mom come down the stairs, and so I looked, just caught my eye in the mirror in the staircase, and I see her come down the steps. And so I pause the show and wait for her to come out because I'm like, oh, maybe she can't talk tonight or whatever. And she doesn't show up. So, I sat there for a little bit. My sisters were kind of like wondering what was going on. And I tried to play it off, classic oldest sibling, just being like, oh, I thought I heard mom coming down the steps, which was kind of true. I didn't tell them that I also saw her coming down the steps, and then she just wasn't there. So we resumed the show, and I tried to kind of just rationalize and be like, oh, maybe she went back upstairs. Maybe I just didn't notice her come into the downstairs. But the more I tried to rationalize, um, this thing that I heard my mom, I saw her coming down the steps, the more stuff started to stick out to me. She wasn't wearing the clothes that I remembered her wearing when she went upstairs. She was wearing white, which my mom almost never wears white. Runs in the family. But and her hair was parted in the middle. It was just kind of like, stuff wasn't really fitting. I was starting to kind of question what I had seen. So by the time that my mom was off the phone with her friend, both of my sisters had fallen asleep, and I was just left with these thoughts watching God knows what. And so my mom comes downstairs, and I realize, like, okay, I just have to ask her because maybe she came down the stairs, went back up. I just didn't notice. So I pulled her aside and tried to be very calm and reasonable about it. And I just said, like, hey, did you come downstairs at some point during the night and then go back up? And at that point, I got a little freaked out because she got this really weird look on her face. And she asked me what time exactly that happened. And so I said, oh, it was like 20 minutes after you went upstairs. And she said that the reason she was asking is because about 20 minutes after she went upstairs, her bedroom door, which had been latched, opened. And she turned around and asked, what do you need, sweetie? Because she thought it was one of us. And no one was there. Now, believe me, I know all the classic debunkings, especially with doors opening on their own. With this, though, I mean, it's a very particular door. It latches well. Um, it doesn't do that. None of the windows were open. There was no gust of air or whatever. And it also happened at exactly the same time that I saw what I'm now calling someone or something coming down the steps. So that was one of the weirdest things that's ever occurred to me. There are other things that have happened, but that is by far the most like classic, if you want to call it a specter or a phantom or whatever, type event. Now, it's interesting because, of course, like, looking at this from the standpoint of a researcher, I can't help but notice, like, hey, there's the classic kind of trope or archetype of the woman in white. It again kind of falls neatly in line with maybe subjective experience, which is then observed objectively. Why did at the same time that I heard and saw what I thought was my mom coming down the steps, did the door open and she think it was one of us? Yeah, just one of those really weird things. And I will admit at the moment it kind of spooked me. Other stuff has occurred in that house. My family has a longer history too of like seeing strange things, whether it's, what we would consider ghost phenomena or UFOs. Um, but yeah, that's one of those moments that just stands out as being kind of special to me, I guess. Now, sharing this story, this personal experience, was of course in the spirit of Halloween, which possesses me all the time. But all possession jokes aside, I also kind of have an announcement to make, and that is I've kind of been for a while debating on the idea of accepting listener stories or viewer stories on the channel and going through them as I do every other case. Now, I'm not going to stop with the retro cases, which I know you guys love because I love them too, but just to kind of add some fresh blood into the channel. Um, and also because I'm really interested in hearing the stories that you guys have. I firmly believe that whatever you refer to the paranormal or the anomalous as, I think that it's a very integral part of what it means to be human. And I think that it changes a lot of people's lives. And so, for that reason, I really want to open up here and have you guys send in your stories. And, you know, I will do my best to read through them and get back to you, but also, like, if you're okay with it, I would love to start doing videos of these stories that you can send me. So for that, you can email me at JustAnotherTinFoilHat@gmail.com. I will also have that written down somewhere on the screen here. And yeah, just, I'm really interested to hear, again, these weird moments that have happened to you. Like, it doesn't need to be the most dramatic or craziest encounter because, it's these small things, these small moments that stand out as like, what was that? What is this weird thing that happened? That to me are as important as, the bigger cinematic, crazy encounters that people have because they are still every bit as anomalous. So, as always, I want to thank you all for watching. And thank you too for just being here and being interested in, these things that are so on the fringe of human society, yet again, to me at least, seem very integral to being human. So please reach out, even if you just want to chat or send a message or something like that, have a question. Feel free to just email me again at justanotherinfoilhat@gmail.com. And for tonight, I am Zelia Edgar signing off, and happy Halloween. Doing.